Right. Welcome to IB Today podcast. Let's talk. This is your host Muhammad Saad. Today we are doing a special show regarding energy crisis or the future of renewables in Pakistan. तो हमारे साथ एक गेस्ट है, उस गेस्ट के साथ हम पहले इंट्रोड्यूस कराते हैं, देन उसके बाद एक कॉन्वर्सेशन को लेकर चलते हैं. मिस्टर साद कैसे हैं आप?
जी अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह.
तो साद मिस्टर साद आपने आपको इंट्रोड्यूस कराया कि आपका बैकग्राउंड क्या है, हु इज मिस्टर साद फरीदी एंड इस इंडस्ट्री में कैसे आए?
So Afan, thank you very much first of all for inviting me here. I feel that it's always a pleasure for me to talk to youngsters because their energy and passion is always something that I find contagious. As far as myself is concerned, personally, apart from my Muslim identity, I feel really proud of being the father of 3 wonderful kids. Other than that, I have interest in photography. I read books, like reading books on the tasawwuf, and do cycling for maintaining my health. On a professional front, I qualified as a chartered accountant back in 2001. I did my articles with A.F. Ferguson and Company, and after completing my articles, I spent the next 17 years of my career with oil and gas companies, which gave me the opportunity to work in different cultures, in Pakistan, Middle East, Africa, Europe. So I got a flavor of working with different nationalities, different cultures, and how people sort of work, how their cultural tendencies affect their work ethics. That was a wonderful experience for me. But about 4 years ago, I sort of had some introspection about my career, and I decided to switch over to renewables, which is a rather an industry in its infancy in Pakistan. And since then I've been working in the renewables industry. Currently I am heading a wind IPP, which is based in Gharo as a CEO.
Right. तो मुझे साथ मुझे थोड़ी सी ये इंट्रोडक्शन लेना है कि आप हाउ डज अ पर्सन फ्रॉम चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंसी गोज इनटू द ऑयल सेक्टर. मतलब आपने क्या सोचा था कि मैं ऑयल सेक्टर में जाऊंगा, या आफ्टर कंप्लीटिंग योर आर्टिकलशिप आपने वही रोल क्यों नहीं फर्गसन में आगे क्यों नहीं कंटिन्यू किया?
नहीं, मेरा कुछ टेंडेंसी इवन फर्गसन के अंदर भी थोड़ी बिजनेस रिलेटेड थी. सो आई यूज्ड टू enjoy more in operating environments rather than in financial environments. And at the time when I graduated from Ferguson, oil and gas was really at its boom. So it was kind of a dream for most of the young graduates to be working in the oil and gas industry. And it was kind of a bit of a luck that I got an opportunity to start working with Pakistan Petroleum Limited, which is a premier oil and gas company in Pakistan. And while I was working for them, I was sort of asked to come and join ENI, which is an Italian company. It was a wonderful experience. I spent the next, I think, 12 years of my career with ENI, and they gave me this opportunity to move around in the world. And within that experience, I did not just work in the finance department. I had the opportunity to work in the operations department. I headed the project services department in one case, and also was deeply involved in formulating the strategies for the oil and gas companies. So my tendency over the course of my career has been mostly towards operations and strategy rather than finance.
Right. तो हमने बात किया आपका जो एक्सपीरियंस है पाकिस्तान पेट्रोलियम लिमिटेड में, 20 years of experience in around oil and gas and energy sector. तो अभी करंटली हमें पता है कि पाकिस्तान का सबसे बड़ा क्राइसिस है एनर्जी क्राइसिस. द रीजन हर दफा हर गवर्नमेंट का सबसे बड़ा यही रोल होता है कि या सबसे बड़ा एजेंडा होता है कि हम एनर्जी क्राइसिस या लोड शेडिंग खत्म करेंगे, जो आज तक नहीं होने वाली. इट्स लाइक जो मैं एक वीडियो देख रहा था अराउंड 2050 के टाइम पे भी पाकिस्तान में लोड शेडिंग वही रहने वाली. लाइक इट्स नॉट गोइंग टू गो अबव. या कई हमारा पॉलिटिशियंस कहते हैं कि हम एनर्जी बहुत ज्यादा बना रहे हैं जिसका हम यूज ही नहीं कर पा रहे, या फिर हम कम बना रहे. इट्स लाइक इट्स नथिंग इन द मिडिल कि हम एक्यूरेटली एड्रेस कर रहे हैं पावर नीड्स को. मतलब व्हाई डू यू थिंक यार ये सारे क्राइसिस हम बार-बार हर टेन्योर गवर्नमेंट में फेस करते रहते हैं?
Okay, so I think when you say energy, you're in your mind you are probably thinking about the power industry.
Yeah,
but for us energy is also the hydrocarbons industry. And both of them have specific problems. I think अफान जो बड़ा इशू है इंडस्ट्री का, चाहे वो पावर इंडस्ट्री का हो या ऑयल एंड गैस इंडस्ट्री का हो, वो ये है कि इसमें प्रॉपर प्लानिंग नहीं है, जिसकी वजह से हमारी जो एक्टिविटीज़ हैं वो साइकिल्स के अंदर परफॉर्म होती हैं. सो जब मुल्क में शॉर्टफॉल आ जाती है तो अचानक गवर्नमेंट बहुत सारे IPPs लगा देती है और एक सरप्लस क्रिएट हो जाता है. फिर जब सरप्लस क्रिएट हो जाता है तो वो एक हाइबरनेशन में चले जाते हैं और कुछ अरसे बाद पता चलता है अब शॉर्ट हो गई तो फिर दोबारा से करते हैं. तो ये जो lack of planning है, this results in this cycle of kind of being in surplus and in shortage. The other big issue which Pakistan has faced over the years is of course the lack of investment in the infrastructure, both in the generation sector as well as in the transmission and distribution sector. So we are quite notorious for the amount of line losses, for example.
Agreed.
Which is a major source of circular debt in Pakistan. We also have, age-old GENCOs, which are extremely inefficient, which not only result in disruption in power supply, but also are resulting in excessive cost of the, delivered power, which eventually, either the consumers have to bear or the government has to bear. So this is a situation in the power sector. If we come to the hydrocarbons industry, I think hydrocarbons industry is one which is very predictable, because when you have an oil and gas field, it is very easy to predict the production pattern of that field. So we knew a long time ago that we would be facing a shortfall between the demand and supply, but we failed to sort of do enough exploration in the country to be able to make up for this shortfall. What we did essentially was to go for short-term measures, which means that for large fields like Sui and Qadirpur, which when they approached their plateaus, we started drilling more wells in them to make up for the shortfall in the supply in the country. But then what happens is that when you are sucking the gas and oil from the reservoirs at a faster pace, it also declines at a faster pace, which means that the subsequent decline in the oil and gas production was so dramatic that we were never able to catch up with the exploration.
Right. तो बेसिकली सबसे कॉमन टर्म जो हम फेस करते हैं न्यूज़ मीडिया में, और आमतौर पे मैं चाहता हूँ स्टूडेंट्स को भी पता चले, वो है सर्कुलर डेट. तो दैट समथिंग कि पहले तो हम इंट्रोड्यूस करना चाहते हैं कि आप बताए तो सर्कुलर डेट को डिस्क्राइब कर दें. सर्कुलर डेट होता क्या है और इससे हमें हमारे मुल्क की इकोनॉमी पे क्या इम्पैक्ट आता है?
जी, so circular debt, Fan, is, you have rightly pointed out, is the biggest issue which the power sector is facing. Not only just the power sector, but also the oil and gas sector, because there is a spilling over effect in the oil and gas sector. सर्कुलर डेट की जो बुनियादी वजह है वो ये है कि जो हमारी ओवरऑल कॉस्ट ऑफ प्रोडक्शन एंड डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन है, द डिलीवर्ड कॉस्ट ऑफ एनर्जी इन द कंट्री इज़ हायर दैन द फाइनल प्राइस, which is resulting in a sort of a shortfall which the government is supposed to make up through subsidies. But because of their own financial constraint, they are unable to make it up, and that creates a kind of a liquidity constraint or crunch within that system. That liquidity crunch over the year has been accumulating because naturally the government does not have the required capacity to fill it. Now, what impact does it create? You know that cash flows are the lifeblood of any organization. You take, no matter how much profits they are making, if they don't have the required cash flows, eventually they're going to succumb to financial pressures, and that's exactly what is happening. When they don't have enough cash flows, they are unable to do required maintenance in their plants, they are unable to upgrade the infrastructure, they are unable to do the BMR, and there it starts a vicious cycle of further aggravation in the problem, which is creating the circular debt in the first place. Now, coming to your question about what we can do about it.
कम कैसे करें?
Faan, ये $1 million क्वेश्चन है. I can tell you, but then I'll have to kill you. So I think देखिए इसमें इसका जो solution है ना, it requires more perhaps the will to act rather than anything else. There's no rocket science behind it. As I mentioned, that the major cause of circular debt are the inefficiencies in the system. So very inefficient gencos where the cost of production is very high, very inefficient and dilapidated transmission and distribution networks, where there are significant line losses. Then a part of it is also commercial, in the sense that we have take or pay contracts with the power producers. So even if they're not producing, because of a lack of demand, either because the infrastructure is not available or because there is no demand in the market, we still have to pay them, and that increases the cost of the power, which eventually has to be passed on to the consumer, right? So all of these have some technical solution available to them, but I would really like to talk about the elephant in the room, the mother of all solutions, and that is the governance in these companies.
Governance in क्या मतलब SWI या PPL where you work?
नहीं, I'm talking about the industry in general, particularly the public sector enterprises. I think
is PPL government?
It is a listed company, but majority shareholding is with the government of Pakistan. Any professional like you will agree that in order to run a large organization, you need to have a professional subject matter expertise board of directors, right? So that's what the government of Pakistan needs to do. Instead of deputing regulators and people coming from bureaucracy on the board of directors of these companies, it is important that they bring subject matter experts, people who have the required experience of running such organizations on the boards of these companies. Once you have a professional board with the required KPIs, with the required deliverables, you will see that all these problems within the organization will automatically start to address themselves. And I believe that that's probably the core issue that should be addressed, rather than talking about what we can do about the line losses or how we can improve. Once you have the right management and the right board, things will automatically improve.
Right. So let's come on to the next subject. Basically, कि energy production तो है ही, but let's talk about renewables. जो अब आपका that's the new company that you're working right now. Renewables पे काम करते हैं. मतलब what's the future of renewables right now in Pakistan? आपको क्या लगता है? How is going to be adoption? किस तरह होगी इसकी?
I think the future of renewable is bright in general. Okay, so we were talking about climate change at the start of this discussion, and we all know that the average temperatures in the world have already risen by 1.1 degrees compared to the pre-industrial levels. And the only way to address this issue is by reduction of the carbon emissions, which means that it's a given and it's a well understood fact that hydrocarbons need to be replaced with cleaner fuels. So what it means is that generally the future of renewables is bright all over the world. In Pakistan, perhaps the implication for renewable is more from the point of view of indigenization than climate mitigation, because Pakistan is not really a big producer of greenhouse gases in the first place. So, but there, the problem is that Pakistan overly relies on thermal power. About 70% of our production is coming from thermal power plants, which means that a very significant amount of foreign exchange is spent on importing the fuels for this power sector. So if you gradually convert the thermal sector to renewables, that will save you a significant amount of foreign exchange over the coming years.
सबसे बड़ा मसला है हमारे
जी, हमारे इसका सबसे बड़ा मसला है, आपको मालूम है कि ट्रेड डेफिसिट और करंट अकाउंट डेफिसिट हमारे हमेशा से एक प्रॉब्लम रहता है. इसके अलावा जो रिन्यूएबल्स की कॉस्ट ऑफ प्रोडक्शन है अब वो इतनी गिर गई है कि वो अब प्रैक्टिकली कोल से compete कर रही है. So not only will it have a beneficial effect on the environment, it will also have a beneficial impact on the current account, as well as the fact that we have a lower cost of energy.
Right. तो देखिए हम जनरल से कह सकते हैं गवर्नमेंट मोर सोलर पावर प्लांट्स या विंड पावर प्लांट्स या हाइड्रो इलेक्ट्रिक पावर प्लांट्स जो भी बनाना चाह रहे हैं रिन्यूएबल सेक्टर में. बट लेट्स टॉक अबाउट जनरल ऑडियंस. आपका घर है, आपको रिन्यूएबल में शिफ्ट होना है. हाउ इज दैट? मतलब एक आम कंज्यूमर के लिए वो किस तरह है कि यार वो किस तरह अपनी ग्रीन हाउस एमिशन कम कैसे करे, फुटप्रिंट?
सो देखिए, जो मैं अक्सर लोगों से कहता हूँ कि इस इक्वेशन की एक बहुत इम्पॉर्टेंट वेरिएबल है जिसको हम अमूमन मिस कर देते हैं, और वो है एफिशिएंसी, राइट? while of course, conversion over renewable is desirable, but you should also realize that renewables are not at a stage where they can be relied upon completely. And that is because of the fact that they have an inherent limitation. That inherent limitation is their intermittency, right? What you need is a base load in the country, which is always available. Solar is available during the day, while wind is intermittent based on the wind pattern. So you can't really completely rely on the renewables. One important, renewable source which Pakistan can really look into and should try to tap into is the geothermal potential. Geothermal is not only renewable, but it is probably the only renewable which can provide base load. So you can completely eliminate thermal, and we have a lot of potential available in Balochistan. We have a lot of abandoned oil fields and gas fields in Pakistan which can be repurposed for geothermal activity. That is something which in general Pakistani economy should do.
आपकी कंपनी ये कर रही है, मतलब do you think that your company should, मतलब जिस सब जगह आप कर रहे हैं, do you think that is the role that you're playing with that?
देखिए, अभी जो इस वक्त इशू है पाकिस्तान में वो ये है कि जियोथर्मल की कोई सच पॉलिसी अवेलेबल नहीं है, राइट? और
पॉलिसी बगैर काम नहीं हो सकता।
जी, लॉ के बगैर काम नहीं हो सकता। तो आप जब कोई भी इन्वेस्टर आता है तो वो पूछता है कि इसके मुतालिक लॉ क्या है। तो इसके लिए प्रॉपर लॉ की फॉर्मुलेशन करना, इसको एडवर्टाइज करना, इंटरनेशनल इन्वेस्टर्स को यहाँ लेकर आना, ये ऐसी चीज़ है कि जिसके ऊपर गवर्नमेंट को फौरी कुछ इकदाम लेने चाहिए, क्योंकि ये एसेंशियली आपकी जो कोर प्रॉब्लम है बेस लोड की, उसको एड्रेस कर सकती है।
राइट। तो towards the end of the show, I just wanted to ask, जो हमारे स्टूडेंट्स और कंज्यूमर्स हैं, उनका जो सबसे सवाल ये होता है कि व्हाट आर इलेक्ट्रिक व्हीकल्स, मतलब ये कि चलो गाड़ियां नहीं तो बाइकें भी, अब इलेक्ट्रिक बाइकें आ गई है, मतलब हाउ डज दैट प्ले अ रोल? मतलब पाकिस्तान को लगता है कि इलेक्ट्रिक व्हीकल्स विल प्ले अ रोल फॉर सस्टेन?
जी देखिए, जब हम क्लाइमेट चेंज की बात करते हैं ना, तो हम एसेंशियली जिस चीज़ की बात कर रहे हैं वो ये है कि हमारे जो एटमॉस्फेयर है उसका एक कार्बन बजट है, राइट? The sooner we consume that carbon budget, the sooner climate change will happen. The slower we are in consuming that budget, the slower climate change will be. So we have to see how we are consuming that budget. And one of the most important contribution is coming from vehicles that we are utilizing. So naturally, the conversion of the conventional vehicles to electrical vehicle is something which is going to help immensely. But this is something which is on the surface. What is important is that the power which you are utilizing even for those electric vehicles should be coming from renewable resources.
मतलब एक eventually आप ऑयल गैस से,
जी ऑयल गैस जनरेटर से आप चार्ज करके अपनी गाड़ी को चला देंगे तो कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ेगा।
हाँ जी, मतलब तो अच्छा, एंड में हमारे कुछ रैपिड फायर सवाल है जो हम आपसे पूछना चाह रहे हैं, एंड देन लेट्स गो ऑन इट। अच्छा, पहला सवाल है ऑयल या गैस?
गैस।
ओके, सोलर या विंड?
विंड।
ओके, पीपीएल या अभी दाऊद ग्रुप?
दोनों।
राइट। गवर्नमेंट रोल या प्राइवेट सेक्टर का रोल इन द एनर्जी प्रोडक्शन?
प्राइवेट सेक्टर।
अच्छा, एंड द फ्यूचर ऑफ एनर्जी सेक्टर आपको पाकिस्तान में वन वर्ड फॉर इट?
आई थिंक deregulated, decentralized, and decarbonized. This is what our group is standing for.
Before we end, I'm बस आपसे कुछ लास्ट टाइम में पूछता हूँ, do OMC should deregulate oil prices or not? मतलब OMCs को देनी चाहिए या नहीं देनी चाहिए?
जी, absolutely. I think there is no other way except deregulation, because you know that the margins for the midstream and the downstream have eroded so much that not deregulating a sector is like strangulating them, which eventually leads them to indulge into practices which, let's say, are not the best practices. So deregulate, there is no other way in my opinion except for deregulation.
थैंक यू मुझे साद फरीदी, आपने जो हमें एनर्जी जो कॉन्सेप्ट्स बताए, मतलब दैट्स समथिंग दैट्स एक्साइटिंग, हमें पता नहीं था। आई थिंक जियोथर्मल इज समथिंग दैट आई नेवर थॉट अबाउट, एंड मुझे बड़ा पता चला, इट्स समथिंग इंफॉर्मेटिव, एंड आई होप जो हमारी जो ऑडियंस देख रही थी उनको भी बड़ा इंफॉर्मेटिव लगा, एंड आई होप आपको ये शो पसंद आया। एंड इफ यू लाइक दिस शो, हमें जरूर बताएं कि मैसेज और शोज करें, साद को वापस हम बुलाएं, मिस्टर साद को, और हम और उनसे हम इंसाइट ले सकें। थैंक यू, अल्लाह हाफ़िज़।